It's a beautiful day today.
Yeah, it is.
I think, yeah. Well, we got here a little early. So we walked down and grabbed a coffee. And just walking back, like the sky is just, I don't know, it's a little bit different. It's like maybe you guys have less pollution than we do in Denver.
Colors, the gray and the blue and the white, it's nice one.
Yeah.
And I love clear skies and sunshine, but I also like the fall colors of the sky.
Yeah.
It adds a lot of texture.
Yeah.
Did you drive down this morning?
Yeah, I picked up Ryan and made him come just in case I can. Any really tough questions. I'm like,
I'm sure you'll be able to handle it.
yeah. I one time did an ESG presentation. We were laughing about it on the way down, and it was at the office. It was just wild, and it was a client, and he was like, "Well, what's wrong with oil and gas? Like, you're never going to get these dividends." And I'm like, "But you're in an ESG presentation. Like, I'm not presenting oil and gas. Like, I've never." And we were laughing. He just kept coming at me. So I was like, "Ryan." So then so now he has to come with me all this stuff, and he's not going to think that ever happens again.
What is this?
The forum?
Topic is?
ESG investing, David. Environmentally responsible investments. Remember we talked about that in our book discussion groups?
Actually, I was going to ask about that handbook that's now being distributed.
The handbook?
The climate handbook?
You mean are you talking about the book discussion that starts tomorrow?
No, maybe that's the point of it.
Well, we've had books out here available for donation. We have that.
Good to see that.
That discussion.
My understanding that was a de facto handbook
Lindsey
for
doesn't need help, but just figure
climate justice.
I'm not sure if I know what you're talking about. Are they out here somewhere? I'll check that out.
I've never been inside this. I never walked past. So many times. It's beautiful.
It's going to be good. I promise.
Never sure.
I'm not touching crypto.
No, but you can ask some questions afterwards about it.
Okay.
I'll answer you.
So we got married.
You probably won't have an answer to my question.
Ryan may though. You like crypto?
It's beautiful. So I'm just very excited.
I think the message of my wife to bank was tracking. You have to have an LLC.
I'm sure.
Tell me why that is. Just
Cheaply farming an LLC.
about what's that?
Cheaply farming an LLC like for under $100.
Yeah, it's
Ryan is perfect because he actually has an LLC and he talks to our clients all the time about it. He's a tall guy talking to Dave right there. So ask him that. That is perfect.
100 years, 150
Yeah.
years. We just celebrated our 150th anniversary last year. The church actually began in 1874. And we underwent some major restoration work here. Worked with the Colorado Historic Fund through the History Colorado Fund for Innovation and Historic Preservation. And we got a series of grants, probably about a dozen of them over the course of several years. This goes back to the 90s and the early 2000s. So we did a lot of restoration work there. Yeah, we had at least two, probably actually three capital campaigns that we raised quite a bit over that period of time, but the funds, the grants actually matched that. She's we had to apply money in the bank for different organizations.
Yeah.
So without that,
She's not.
we probably wouldn't be able to do
Well,
it.
she's risk averse. You're not liking a lot of risks.
Well, what she considers risk taking is getting a CD instead of a CD.
Yeah, that's okay though. There is some very, decent money markets are being
Yeah, I've seen them. I saw them there one time.
Did you know?
Yeah. I don't, but see, it has to stay plugged in, so you'd almost have to sit maybe right here.
Yeah. Pretty well, relatively good for my age. I'm surviving. Yeah, I got a couple of classes Wednesday, EPSC.
Yeah, I just was thinking they might have either him or Ryan
Yeah,
flip the
usually
slides for
one
me,
or two
just because of that.
before
But
it ends,
I just
changes
didn't
every
know.
semester. Got two right now.
Yeah,
It's not
no,
enough.
yeah, it's interesting.
Don't want to do much more than that, really.
I just wonder where you have to sit there.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
So I see.
Or you just pop it out.
Yeah. These things always get lost.
Just don't let me take it away.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah.
Forward, backward.
No, but you're doing it.
Oh, you want me to do it?
I'm
Okay.
doing it.
Right.
I need to hold this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, very good.
So you think you know my presentation enough to know when I
Nice connection here from Dave.
were you outside showing?
Oh,
Outside showing?
yeah.
Oh.
It's one of those places. Cool architecture. People recognize the building.
Yeah, where did you shoot from the main one?
Oh, yeah. Stained glass.
Hi. Good, how are you? Hey, how are you? Yeah, it's on face. I feel like you heard it enough that you know right where you and then I'll see you, I guess, because then I'll see a transit. Will you click on it? Oh, perfect. Then I'll see a transition. Where can I? Should I just go behind me? Yes,
sounds like a good forum topic to me, dude. You know? Yeah, it is. Maybe need a refresher now. Yeah, the new landscape of social connections. It's a challenge for all churches.
Okay, you're all about the president, I guess I'll have to.
Make sure you take notes.
Here it is in our back.
All right, everybody, why don't you grab your seats and we're going to get started here. Welcome to Forum. Thanks for hopping in. If there was any doubt before this week, we're definitely in fall now, aren't we? All the leaves, Mother Nature is littering all over the streets and yards in a beautiful way. So on that note, I just want to remind everyone that next week there is no forum. It is our fall festival, so you won't want to miss that. It's a hoot. It's a lot of fun. All the, especially the young families and their kids, will be carving pumpkins out here in the atrium. So come on and join us.
Rob,
Yeah.
that's the last weekend. Not
Oh, you're right. You're right. That's right. Not next week. No. Be here next week. In 2 weeks. Thank you. That's 2 weeks. That's October 26th. Next week, I need you here. It's going to be really cool. we have Mindy Lavender. You all know Mindy? And she is going to be talking about the topic of witchcraft and paganism. So, be really apropos to the season, kind of interesting. If you have any questions about that and want to know what that's all about, it'll be fun. That'll be Mindy. So right now, I want to turn it over to Dave Simek. Dave, would you like to do some introductions for our speakers today, Lindsey Simek and her partners? So I'll turn it over to Dave. Our guest today came through Dave, who first started the forum. As a matter of fact, there's a plaque right behind you at the end of the chapel honoring Dave. The forum is Dave's baby, and so I am a very humble, step in here for Dave's work as he's retired from forum. But he's still with us and bringing in speakers. So,
But the forum is in good hands.
I just stumbled along. Thank you, Dave.
Well, I'm happy to introduce Lindsey Simek and her colleague Ryan Turbyville from Capstone Investment Financial Group, located just a couple blocks north of us here on Tejon, right next to Meager Music, so you can stop by and strum a ukulele or guitar and visit Capstone, which that's what I do. So I've known Ryan and Lindsey for a fair number of years, and I have high regard for Capstone. It's a great organization. They're involved in the community. They support a number of not-for-profit groups, so I really appreciate that. In fact, I think they may even be co-sponsoring the Women's Film Festival. Wow. So it's a good organization, and this talk really comes from our creation justice work that we've been doing over the last 2.5 years. And we've held a number of book discussion groups on environmental justice topics. In fact, we have one coming up tomorrow. I'll put in a plug for our book discussion group that starts tomorrow. Morning session and a Zoom session in the evening. So I encourage people to attend that. But in those discussions, we would often come up with a list of maybe 10 different action items that each of us as individuals could take to work toward environmental justice, climate change, remediation, and things like composting, recycling, xeriscaping, planting trees, making donations to charitable organizations that focus on environmental justice. And one of those items that would always come up in the discussions was something called ESG investing. I like to think about that as values-based investing. ESG, we'll explain what that is, what that stands for. But the idea was that we all, with whatever modest or more than modest retirement savings and other investments that we have, each individually, the combination of many of us focusing on what we're investing in might have an impact toward climate justice. And that would mean moving away from fossil fuel oriented investments. If we're going to have that money sitting there trying to build some revenue for us in our retirement, let's at least use it wisely and on a values-based basis. And of course, ESG is a broader-based program than just environmental justice. It also incorporates social justice interests as well, which of course we're interested in here. So we want to bring Lindsey to talk more about ESG, explain that, help people that might be thinking about moving in that direction in their investments. And so let's give a warm First Congregational welcome to Lindsey.
Well, thank you guys, and thanks for having me here today. So to start, you guys as a congregation, you've already made a bold, sacred commitment to care for the earth, to uplift the vulnerable, and to live your faith not just in word but in action. So today, we're going to talk about something that may not be discussed every day from the pulpit. We're going to talk about investing. But I want to reframe it, not just as a financial act, but as a spiritual one. because every dollar that we invest is actually a vote for the kind of world we want to build. And if we believe in justice, in stewardship, and in equality, then our portfolio should reflect those beliefs. ESG investing, which is environmental, social, and governance, isn't just a trend, which a lot of people do believe. It's actually a tool for healing creation, for empowering communities, and for living out our values in the most tangible way possible. So let's explore how we, people of faith, can invest with purpose, with power, and more importantly, with love. It's okay. I got it. You're fine. So a little bit about me. Thank you for the introduction, Dave. I actually grew up in Wyoming, which is kind of funny for the ESG connection. But I've lived in Denver for the past 16 years, and I'm a proud mom to 4 kids. And I've been with Capstone now for 5 years to the day, and clearly Ryan forgot my gift this morning. But I actually joined Capstone because of my background in sustainability. So that's why I'm so passionate about the ESG sector. My personal ESG philosophy, it's your personal choice. I'm never going to try to push it on people, but it's definitely a choice. But I truly believe it's important. Why not invest in your future, in your children's future, in your grandchildren's future? And why not hold these major companies accountable? And a thought just to kind of think, or to keep in your mind as we move through this presentation, why is it that in the United States, investing in ESG, that's kind of considered like high risk? If I mention it to someone, they'll say, oh, that's way too risky for me. But then you go places like Europe, and it's actually the norm. And to not invest in ESG, that's when it's considered to be riskier. So why are we different here? Why do we have that different mentality? Okay, no more. So, do not wait for extraordinary circumstances to do good. Try to use ordinary situations. This quote by Jean-Paul Richter is a beautiful reminder that doing good doesn't require grand gestures or perfect conditions. It encourages us to act with purpose and compassion in everyday moments of life. I also want you to keep that in mind as we move through the presentation. In his philosophy, it aligns beautifully with ESG investing, which is all about making everyday financial decisions that reflect your ethical values. You don't need to have a lot of money. You don't need to be a billionaire to make a difference. You don't need a global crisis to justify action. And you just simply need to choose investments that support environmental sustainability, social equity, and responsible governance. So today, we're going to begin by understanding ESG principles and their spiritual roots, and then we're going to discuss ESG investing as an embodiment of creation justice. Next, we'll explore how ESG promotes the social values, practical steps for financial literacy and active participation, and finally examine impact, returns, and faithful reflection of ESG investing. So, understanding ESG principles and their spiritual foundations. Let's explore the framework that will help us align our financial decisions with our deepest values. So to begin, let's just even define what ESG means. It's environmental, social, and governance. That's the E, the S, and the G. The environmental impact, ESG assesses how companies minimize negative effects of the environment through sustainable practices. Then you have the social responsibility. Companies are evaluated in their commitment to social values like diversity, equity, and community support. And then governance practices. That's making sure that companies have strong governance and include ethical leadership, transparency, and accountability in their corporate decision making. ESG criteria will evaluate these companies based on these 3 aspects, and then they will provide it with an ESG score. And that's how your ESG, considered an ESG friendly company, ESG fund. So that's where ESG comes from. But today, we're actually going to take ESG investing a step further. We're going to explore how its values actually intersect with our faith and our call to justice. So when I first started speaking with Dave and Rob about all this, I didn't know how I was going to tie this into your guys' Creation Nation, how I was going to make this a meaningful presentation. But then Dave sent me some literature, we had a few meetings, and I learned about your commitment to creation justice, and it started to click. What a powerful opportunity I had to bring together finance and faith, and I don't get to do that often. So to see investing not just as a financial act, but as a spiritual one, this is an opportunity for me as well. ESG values centered on environmental care, social responsibility, and governance that mirrors core faith principles: justice, compassion, and stewardship. When we invest through the ESG lens, we're choosing to align our financial decisions with our deepest spiritual convictions. It's another way of doing good in the world and to do it faithfully. So as people of faith, we are called to recognize the earth not as a commodity, but as a sacred creation, woven with divine intention and trusted to our care. Creation justice reminds us that protecting and nurturing the natural world is not optional. It's a spiritual obligation that you guys have taken on. So from the soil beneath our feet to the communities that depend on clean air and water, as stewards of the living, it's a breathing gift. Faithful stewardship means way more than just recycling and reducing waste. It means aligning our choices, including our financial ones, with values that honor life, equity, and sustainability. So when we invest in companies that respect the environment, that uplift their workers, that govern ethically, then we're living out our faith in a tangible way. We're saying that justice doesn't stop at the sanctuary door. No, it flows into the boardrooms, the supply chains, and onto balance sheets as well. This is the heart of creation justice, to see the divine in the details and to act accordingly. ESG investing becomes not just a strategy, but a spiritual practice in this way. It's one that reflects our deepest convictions and our hope for a more flourishing world. So ESG investing as an expression of creation justice. So for this congregation, it's not just about responsible investing, it's more about faithful investing. As a creation justice church, you guys have made a covenant to care for our earth. So let's talk about how ESG investing becomes a powerful way to live out that covenant. So when I first started to prepare this, I wanted to cover everything underneath the creation justice umbrella. There's so much richness there. But I was reminded that I only have 45 minutes, and you guys would be sleeping anyways. And so today I'm just going to focus on one powerful thread, investing as a way to give back to the earth. So when we talk about giving back, we often think of service, advocacy, or lifestyle changes. But investing, how we choose to allocate our financial resources, it's also a form of stewardship. ESG investing, especially through the environmental lens, it directly supports the sacred covenant. And it channels your capital towards businesses that will reduce harm, promote sustainability, and innovate for a healthier planet, which is, that's exactly what we want. This kind of investing, it reflects more than just strategy, it reflects gratitude. Gratitude for the earth is a divine gift. It's a way of saying through our financial choices that we care deeply about what God has created and entrusted to us. And it's a way of living our values not just in worship, but in the marketplace. And who would have thought that that was possible? So some words to live by. We did not inherit the earth from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children. And the greatest threat to our planet is the belief that someone else will save it. These words remind us that our relationship with the earth is not one of ownership, but again, it's of stewardship. We are caretakers, not just for today, but for generations to come. ESG investing becomes a tangible way to honor that responsibility. It's not just about growing wealth, it's about growing wisdom, compassion, and accountability. So faithful stewardship, it begins with the ethical management of our financial resources, but it doesn't end there. When we choose to invest through the ESG lens, we're not just making value-based decisions for ourselves, we're sending the message to the marketplace. We're saying that transparency, fairness, and responsibility, it matters to us. This kind of investing holds major corporations accountable. And even though in today's, I don't want to say it, but political environment, a lot of major corporations are getting off the hook, it's our time to stand up and say no, not the case. It challenges them to operate with integrity, to care for the environment, and to treat workers justly, and to govern ethically. Faithful stewardship becomes a form of advocacy, using our financial voice to demand better from the institutional that shapes our world. In this way, ESG investing transforms stewardship from a personal virtue into a collective force of justice. And that is why it is so powerful. So let's talk about promoting social values through ESG. What says while environmental stewardship is the foundation, ESG investing also opens the door to such a broader justice. It's not just about the planet, which is very important, a major aspect of it, but it's about the people as well. So that's the S in ESG. It stands for social, and it focuses on how companies treat its people, and that includes its employees, its customers, its communities, and society at large. And it includes issues like fair labor practices, diversity and inclusion, human rights, community engagement, and health and safety. So from a creation justice perspective, this is deeply spiritual. Justice isn't just about protecting the earth. No, it's also about protecting the people who live on it. Creation justice calls us to honor the dignity of every person, especially the vulnerable, the marginalized, and the exploited. So when we invest in companies that uphold these values, we are practicing a form of internal stewardship. And then ESG investing is not just about financial returns, which are important, but it's also about investing in human flourishing. By supporting community health initiatives, we strengthen resilience and solidarity. And by promoting justice and equality, we reflect core faith values and help build peaceful and inclusive communities. And through faith-based communal care, we affirm that our financial choices nurture collaboration, compassion, and a shared well-being. Now, this is what I really like to talk about: empowering women in marginalized communities. Empowering women in finance is so much more, it's more than just investing in businesses that uplift women. It's actually about changing the systems. It's about encouraging all women to take ownership of their financial lives, to lead, to decide, and to thrive. I speak on this often because I believe deeply that financial literacy is empowerment, and every woman deserves access to that power. But this isn't just a social issue. I believe this is also a creation justice issue. Creation justice calls us to care for the earth and its people. That includes advocating for equity, dignity, and opportunity for everyone. When women are empowered financially, families are strengthened, communities are uplifted, and the ripple effect goes across all generations. Faithful investing through an ESG lens, again, supports this vision. It means choosing to invest in companies that value women's leadership as well, that promotes fair labor and inclusive economies. It's a way that we can honor the sacred responsibility and nurture both the planet and the people, once again. So how do we invest with purpose? Now we've explored why ESG investing matters, from faith to justice to stewardship. Now let's turn to how we actually put these values into action and invest with purpose. So let's start with your values. Identify what matters most. Here you can, is it environmental care that matters to you? Is it social justice or ethical leadership? You can choose all three, or you can pick a theme. Doesn't matter how you want to do. Just find out what matters to you and what you want to invest in. Then choose an ESG aligned investment. You can look for funds, and that's a whole nother presentation, but you can look for funds and different investments that meet environmental, social, and governance standards. Research and reflect. Research, make sure that they actually are doing what they say they're doing. And then engage as a shareholder. Support advocacy and vote. Once you're an investor, you have the right to vote, and vote on those issues that reflect your values. So here's some examples of some ESG funds. I don't want you guys to think that I'm trying to sell you on these. In fact, we don't even use any of these. That's why I specifically chose them. But this is just 4 examples of 4 different funds. There are thousands of funds that you can choose from. But here, the PRBLX, it screens out fossil fuels, tobaccos, and weapons, and invests in only companies with strong environmental labor practices. The iShares USA ESG Select ETF, it will track US companies with ESG ratings across all sectors, so that kind of just give you a broad, just a broad band of all kinds of different ESG-friendly companies. The Calvert Equity Fund, it focuses on diversity, climate action, and ethical governance. And then the Spider S&P 500 just offers broad market exposure to the S&P 500 companies, but excludes the low ESG standards. So these are just examples. There are tons, there are thousands. If you were to decide to invest in ESG, that's when you do your research and say, what matters to me? What companies matter to me? Why do I want to invest in them? And then you don't have to do funds. You can do individual companies. Microsoft, Patagonia, Tesla, don't shoot this. Cisco, Verizon, NVIDIA. These are all companies that are they're more the market leaders. They're value leaders, honestly, yeah, whether you like them or not. Each one integrates ESG principles into its core strategy, supporting climate action, ethical labor practices, inclusive leadership, and community well-being. So, so by investing in companies like this, we're not just seeking returns, but we're living out, again, our faith stewardship. So now we have covered a lot, from theology to finance. So now let's take a moment and how can we make our money reflect our mission? This checklist, it will offer you guys a clear path for turning our values into action. So whether you're just beginning to think about ESG or you're refining your approach, these steps, they will help you align your financial decisions with your faith. They'll help promote justice and empower others. So one thing I do really want to emphasize here, again, clarify your core values, review your portfolio, and explore ESG funds and companies. Then you want to engage your faith in your community. And by this, you host workshops. So this is, once you've done your personal research, made some personal choices, share what you're doing with others. And use your voice as a shareholder. Make sure you vote on issues. And then monitor your portfolio. Once you've decided, you've made some adjustments, monitor and adjust regularly. And then educate and empower others. But one thing I want to really emphasize here is you don't have to do it all at once. You don't have to look at your financial portfolio and completely revamp it to be ESG. Or you don't have to rebalance everything, sell everything you have and go all ESG. You can make just small changes. Invest in one company that really is meaningful to you. Or that you hear of someone that has really done something special and it caught your attention. Buy some of its stock. Or find one fund that is that supports all of your values, and start there. And if you want to revamp your portfolio, I mean, you can do that as well. You can do it in a way that is, you want to do it in a way that it's beneficial to you financially as well. But I don't want you to feel overwhelmed. I mean, small steps make a big change. And then also ESG investing, it isn't a trade-off. It's a powerful alignment of purpose and performance. So you don't have to choose, and so many people believe this, you do not have to choose between financial returns and meaningful impact. In fact, investing in companies that prioritize sustainability, equity, and good governance, it actually can lead to long-term resilience and growth. And that's exactly what we want in our portfolios. So faithful investing, again, impact equals impact plus performance. ESG investing, it isn't a compromise. It's a powerful alignment of values and value. You do not have to choose between financial returns and impact and meaningful impact. And companies that prioritize sustainability, equity, governance, and often deliver the long-term resilience. It's not an either or, it is a both and an and. You can build wealth and while advancing justice and caring for creation and empowering communities. You don't have to choose. Also, I've heard a few clients say to me, I'm willing to give up returns. Again, that is awesome, and I love that you are, but you don't have to. You can build a very solid, financially strong ESG portfolio. So we have covered a lot today, from the mechanics of ESG investing to the spiritual call of creation justice. But I want to leave you with this. The earth is crying out. Communities are crying out. And we, as people of faith, cannot afford to be silent. Not in our prayers, not in our advocacy, and not in our financial decisions. Every investment is a seed, and we have the power to choose what garden we're planting. Will it be one of extraction, exploitation, and indifference? Or will it be of restoration, justice, and renewal? You don't have to be a financial expert to make a difference. You just have to be willing to reflect. Does this reflect who I am? Does this reflect what I believe? So let us go forward, not just as investors, but as stewards, as justice seekers, as people who believe that faith is not passive, it's active, and that even our dollars can be disciples. Thank you for having me here. You guys have any questions on any of this?
I have a question about governance. I'm pretty clear on the ESG, but what exactly is a good governance? What?
Could you give you an example? So think of this, if, for example, you don't want any of your board of directors to actually be a part of the company itself. You don't want governance. Ryan, help me out here. Some good examples of governance.
So in clarity, as far as like their financials, Bill, like Enron's kind of the opposite. I'm an example of good corporate governance. And it also goes to the boardroom too, but that does include, is there, females on the board? Is there people of color on the board?
How transparent.
Exactly. Yeah. And do they see kind of other people in the community or stakeholders that are involved in the governance structure? So socials, you think it's kind of the outside, the company of how they impact the community, where governance is, both the employees as well as the board members. Are they, getting a diverse board of who they're hearing, or are they all just a bunch of old white guys, oil and gas guys in the boardroom? Are they getting different things? Are they hearing stakeholders, different opinions, and what are they doing within the company? Are they promoting women up in leadership roles, people of color in leadership roles? That is the governance piece.
And sometimes the governance and the social almost kind of, because you have the diversity, equity, and inclusion.
That's what I was thinking about too, because just a few universities, or one, I think, is now standing up and saying, I'm not accepting. So do you look for that also, the DEI issue?
Yes.
the DEI definitely kind of fits both that social and that governance piece of both internally, but then externally as well. Excluding others.
And it's been a little bit more difficult, right? Because some companies are just saying we don't want anything to do with DEI now, just to not to lose support from their government, and so that has been more difficult. So this, I think, maybe it's more important than ever to stand up.
Are there ESG bond funds?
Absolutely, yes. You can get so what was a good bond?
The GRMB is
Yeah, GRMB. You can get almost any bond, like ESG. You can get any funds ESG based that you can. Let's call them traditional based. So yeah, you can go from extremely high risk to all fixed income bonds.
But to answer your question, it seemed like equity, the stock piece, was kind of earlier on, where the bond piece kind of lagged, and there's definitely more kind of stock funds than there are fixed income or bond funds, but they have started to bring that into the mix and started to catch up. So there definitely are some good ones now, and then some of it too depends on we have plans that government treasuries, how much of that kind of matters, and some of them see it as one historically it's kind of a safe haven, but we've had other ones too of looking outside other places because that fund kind of what's going on in the world with war and stuff like that. Obviously that's a big portion of the government. A lot of what the bond issues from the Treasury Department do go finance, and so definitely a consideration as well that we have with ESG clients of what is the impact, where they want to be. But to answer your question, they're starting to come around the last 5 or 10 years of having some good bond funds.
With your employer's 401k, I'm thinking about, and if there's like a limited number of funds that they have to choose from in that, any recommendation there on how to go on ESG?
That was tough, and I don't know that all 401ks would offer that. And it's funny you say that because my daughter was doing her 401k and she told them, "Oh, my mom is into ESG on my ESG," and they're like, "Well, you're not going to have a good 401k." But unfortunately, because it is a 401k and the funds are so limited there, they were correct. She was not able to build a solid. So that was a little bit tougher.
So a couple things, and then one, I guess, kind of push the employer, and that has gotten political. Unfortunately, the Department of Labor really kind of regulates a lot of the 401ks, and so they see it as risky, or certain people who are in the Department of Labor allow certain things, even though, as Lindsey's point, they're not, they don't add any more risk. But a few things we have done is one, if it's a smaller company, can you push your employer to get with their 401k provider to include some ESG options. Also, a lot of 401ks now do have a self-directed option to where basically you sign off, and instead of you having Schwab is probably the biggest provider of self-directed 401k, where basically you can sign something with your employer and basically take your assets and move it into essentially a self-directed one.
Other funds.
Exactly. Then you can go through and select some of the funds that Lindsey spoke about, and that does require a little bit more of your own management, but a lot of companies do allow that, where basically they can kind of, if they don't want to include the ESG because they think it's risky or political or whatever, they can kind of wash their hands of it and say, nope, you agreed to manage this, but then it gives you kind of an open architecture to go out and invest in what you would like to meet your values.
You may have answered this before I came in late, but for those of us who have an investment advisor, because we don't want to be reading a company's prospectus, their annual reports, and vetting their board members.
Yes.
Are there, but I assume all financial advisors are created equal in terms of their education with ESG. So do you really carefully vet your financial advisor in terms of this, and or do they label themselves as being ESG?
I do, yeah,
ESG friendly, or how does that?
Yeah.
How's the label work? Even read.
So I think, yeah, just first of all, just finding some advisors don't even want to deal with ESG, some don't mind at all. But yeah, and again, yeah, it's their responsibility to look. But so yeah, I guess if you have already a current advisor, and you I would have that conversation with them, like this is something I'm interested in, and maybe you could say I'm interested just in ESG as a whole, or I'm really interested in ways to protect the environment, or I'm really interested in women empowerment, or you can either pick a theme or say I'm invested in ESG. Then yes, even if they don't have a ton of experience in it, they should be able to still research, just with the resources that they have at hand, and find some, funds that you are looking for, because they can still look at performance, look at returns, and do that.
But is the honest truth that they'll do that even for someone like me who doesn't have a lot of money invested, or are they not willing to do that kind of legwork when there's not a lot of money?
We are.
Okay.
No, absolutely. No, I think if they're your advisor, and again, like we're more than happy, So even if it's something, if you had an advisor and you just wanted to come in and chat, I would be more than happy to do that, and then you could kind of have a foundation to go off. So I see what you're saying. Sometimes it is hard, and sometimes when advisors have their portfolio that they're using, they don't like to waver from that.
So like we, there's a previous work where Lindsey's on the board of an organization called Second Chance Center, and we have an endowment, and we can't, me and Jim back when I was on the board, Lindsey's on the board now, but just an example, the whole investment policy statement is all ESG based. And so I reached out to an investment advisor firm that I knew would do well on performance and reporting, and mentioned the ESG, and they basically said, hey, we have no interest in doing that, researching it. So we said, okay. Yep, the board's not going to review them. So yeah, I think just having that discussion of, hey, do you have the knowledge, do you have the interest, are you willing to kind of go along with this?
I think more importantly there is to find someone that's passionate about it and cares, because then they're going to take that time.
That'll narrow it down.
It really will. I mean, yeah, but they're out there. There's advisors out there. But yeah, just find someone that cares about it.
And then you talked about the funds, and I mean, how does it compare in the marketplace? Because when I talked to my husband that I was coming here, and he exactly said, well, then you're not making as much money.
Yeah.
And that's like what you said, but is it
true?
Yeah.
Am I just lying to you?
I mean, are there funds? I mean, are there some funds that actually do so much better than the average fund that's filled with?
So the key is to build a portfolio, right? That one meet your what we would call risk tolerance. Like, are you very risky? Or are you not very risky? Now you establish that. And then you build a fund, and you find those funds, but you don't just have one fund or two. Like, you build a whole entire portfolio.
And these funds are kind of ESG labeled.
Mm-hmm.
So if you get that label, there's some kind of governance that says that's it.
There's think of a bucket, and in order to get dropped into that ESG bucket, they have to meet certain criteria.
Yeah. And if you're not, it's just about the environment, but if you have that ESG label, you're saying, okay, at least they're better than what it could be.
But now, that being said, there could be a fund that performs terribly.
Yeah.
Just like there's a regular fund that performs terribly. So again, that's where, like, if you do have an advisor, that's their job to stay on top of that. We have, so for every traditional portfolio we have an ESG portfolio that matches it. And so similar investment options, but just ESG. We monitor those every quarter. If there's a low liar, one that's not performing, one that's just, or maybe it's running flat, it will point it out. We'll see it. Now, do we watch that, or do we just switch it out? So just like we would in our traditional portfolios. So again, that's just managing it.
Yeah.
And I think that, again, I don't know, a while back, there just wasn't the options. But now I think because people are demanding it and in such strong companies, think about it, like Microsoft, Google, Apple, Tesla. These are strong market leaders, and they're taking on that ESG initiative. So you are getting some powerhouse companies that are taking that on. So it's the matter of just watching your portfolio. You still get your returns. You want to watch it. If something's not performing, you switch it out.
Yeah.
And one thing that we do just as fiduciaries, as Lindsey said, we have traditional portfolios and ESG portfolios. And we meet as an investment committee every month, but every quarter we review portfolio performance and we track, the same risk level of a traditional portfolio that doesn't have any ESG screens with ESG every quarter, and we chart kind of the same risk portfolios together. And Lindsey runs our ESG portfolios, and thankfully there's been very, very tight. There are times where ESG may underperform slightly. There are periods where ESG actually outperforms, but over a long period of time, and we track, and then we it's not the right word, and we definitely kind of hold not accountable, but we expect Lindsey kind of on that management, or we discuss in the investment committee of, hey, what changes do we need to meet, what's lagging, what do we need to increase or decrease, because as fiduciaries we need to get the same, if not similar returns, traditional to ESG, and so something that we track very closely as fiduciaries, in that, even though you have a lot of clients have that passion and that we love, we also want to make sure that they can either retire or stay retired and meet their financial goals.
It's not a donation.
Exactly. And so on the fiduciary side, we hold that. And one thing real quick too is, there's some stuff here, Lindsey's card, but there's also on the back of this an article that Lindsey wrote 2 years ago, but all about that. And so feel free to take one, and if we run out, we can get them today to send out. But Lindsey wrote a one-page article just about that, returns ESG versus traditional, with a lot of sources in there. So definitely a great read.
I've been interested in tracked ESG investing for quite a while, and I'm the treasurer of a family foundation that practices ESG. I agree that I think that it's really important that the returns are emphasized, that they're equal to, sometimes outperforming the average markets. But one of the things that surprised me when we first started getting into it was that when you actually looked at, say, an ESG index fund versus a regular index fund, there really isn't that much of a difference. And I wondered if you could comment on that. I think we looked at it and like 8 or 9 of the companies were the same for like an S&P 500 index versus an S&P versus the ESG index.
Yeah, Brian's answer your index question.
What's an index fund, please?
Yeah, so absolutely. So first, kind of an index fund, there's kind of two things. Like a mutual fund, those are not always, but typically actively managed. So an investment manager actively goes through and picks these stocks or bonds. There's index funds, which basically just own, like you can own a S&P 500 index fund. Like Vanguard has VOO as the ticker symbol. And that just owns everything that S&P 500 index owns. Super cheap because nobody's actively managing it. Just whatever the index owns, they own. To your point on that, there are some very low cost ESG that have very light screens, I should say. So you find, you just compare them, the top 20 holdings.
Like a Vanguard ESG fund, I don't know what they are, but I assume they have.
Exactly, yeah. And like one of the most common ones is ESGU. It's very close to you look at them side by side. There's not a lot of difference between a regular S&P 500 index fund, which is the 500 largest companies in the U.S., versus ESGU, right? It's very cost to own. It's an easy way to get into it. But then it's really, so to your point, there's not yes, it does screen, but there is still a lot of similarities, so it doesn't do a real deep dive. You can get some actively managed funds. Like there's that Parnassus, like they go through and actively screen it. So you may own 15 stocks that have very little resemblance to a traditional S&P 500. And then two, like Lindsey will go into clients that have very specific interests, whether it's LGBTQ, whether it's women's rights, whether it's environment, and then go through and pick individual stocks that meet their individual passion.
Right.
But yeah, to your point, to be careful in that some people have built index funds, and there's no governing body on what there's governing companies that rate them, but there's no governing like rules essentially on what you can call an ESG or not. So some companies have built a low cost one, they may throw out Chevron and then tack an ESG label on it and go out and sell it. So you're right, you have to be careful.
It's just really curious that the ESG kind of has a varying depth of meaning depending upon what you're investing in, and if they're not putting a lot of resources into that screening process and that evaluation process, which I brought up index funds because they're very popular and they're very easy to invest in, as opposed to that screening wouldn't be as strong as one where a more actively managed fund like Parnassus or Donald funds or some of those will be. Thank you.
Absolutely.
That's actually
great point.
Really good. I just kind of know that, but it was really good to hear it sort of articulated.
I've kind of latched on to a theme that I've been hearing, which is that there seems to be like some bias out there that claims that that ESG doesn't return enough, right? Mm-hmm. And it's interesting to me to hear because if I could summarize that, it's that that there's this dichotomy between to do the moral thing, what we consider a moral thing, that aligns with our values, that it's too costly, that it's mutually exclusive. That to be participating in finance and capitalism, it costs you much. And so we have, that you just have to sort of forfeit this little chunk of this value, this moral center of yourself in order to participate in this realm over here as if exclusive. And I think what I'm hearing is that that's just not true.
Nope. Yeah, it's not.
Right.
Not at all. And again, like as long as it helps, to have an advisor, have someone, an investment manager, watching your portfolio. Because you don't want to just say, oh, this is ESG, I'm going to throw my money into it and never look at it again. Then your returns could struggle. But yeah, no, if you have an actively managed portfolio, you're watching it, your advisor's doing their due diligence on it, yeah, absolutely not. You have to give up returns.
I think it's really encouraging, to hear. You can have a bit of both. You can still retain your your moral identity, what you believe in.
Yeah. And for example, we have so at Capstone, and I had it on a slide. I'd probably get killed for saying this. I had it on a slide, and our compliance made us take it off. But it was our compliance. They said, you don't want me to come in here trying to sell you guys a bunch of funds. But we have this what's called the Equality Fund. So for example, that's our fund that Jamie and Ryan built, and everything is screened. And so it focuses on equality in the workplace for the LGBTQ community. So my point of this fund is we don't just put together this fund and just not ever look at it again. Yeah. That fund is constantly being monitored, screened through CSI, am I saying that right? The CSI index, making sure that all the companies that are in it are not only performing well, but also meeting specific guidelines. Once they don't, they are filtered out, and then you just find another company to bring into that fund. So.
Cool.
How do you think of the current political environment and what's happening, where money's being invested, where we're not allowed to put our money anymore? How do you think that's going to impact the future of ESGs and the performance of ESGs?
So far we haven't seen like an effect in the performance, and I think just because a lot of companies, Microsoft, Google, they're not changing their stance. One of them did. Was it Apple who took away DEI? But anyways, so it's so funny you asked that, because when everything first went down, Ryan's like, you need to write an article on ESG. I said, okay, ESG is dead. Article's done. I had such a terrible attitude. Yeah. I say, close my office door, I'm not writing the article. But then I started researching it and started, just, and it said that, in fact, it's not dead, and that there are companies that are taking a stand, that are going to continue on. So I think there's still going to be funds. I think you're still going to have those strong companies. I think maybe the research is going to be a little bit, more rigorous. I think you're going to have to look harder. Maybe make sure that what you're doing, I think you have to make adjustments more often. Now, if they start really deregulating everything, I'm not going to lie. I think it could create challenges, but I don't think it's dead in the water.
I think that a lot of companies and cities and states and things like this are really motivated to maintain good environmental equity policies and things like that, which we sort of gets lost because when the government comes out and says, well, we're doing away with all of these things, it just washes over the fact that actually people believe in that.
Yeah.
And I think it's good policy and it's also good business.
Right, so if the government comes up and says, you know what, the environmental regulations, scratch that. We're going to cut those in half. Like, you do whatever you want. Put as much pollution in the air as you want. We need to make money. As long as the people and as long as the companies say no, if these car companies are not going to continue to meet the standards, if these companies are going to completely take away their DEI, then we're not going to invest in them. Then I think that's the time that you and I, that we can make that change, or at least make a difference. Yep.
If I may ask a question, this is all really very interesting, but there's one technology that has not been mentioned today that has been in the news, especially this last year, because we all mentally want a framework to do an analysis. Now, there's a technology called artificial intelligence that just might be of help or not. What is your take on the utilization of AI to address this issue that we've been talking about? So until now, I won't bring it up. I was silent. So put it on the table.
I think AI.
So what I think, who knows kind of that long-term impact, right? Is it going to take jobs? How do we transition as a society? We, as Capstone, efficiency-wise, we use it a fair amount. Even within Microsoft has the Copilot, which is wonderful for looking at your calendar and your Outlook and
email.
Exactly. So
doing notes, everything.
It's wonderful, like in ChatGPT, if we get in. Lindsey actually
get some pieces of AI today.
Lindsey actually she got one. It was someone kind of shot back on an article Lindsey wrote about ESG, and Lindsey actually had ChatGPT help for kind of craft
craft my email.
A decent email back with kind of a fire email to her from an article. And then, one of the companies, right, is NVIDIA. I mean, NVIDIA is the one that makes all the chips for these AI companies, and it's been a phenomenal stock since we bought it a couple years ago. So I think you can have ESG along with the AI. One thing that is a consideration on the AI is that AI takes so much energy. In these data warehouses, how are they? Exactly. How are these data warehouses, like a Microsoft or an OpenAI, how are they fueling these massive data warehouses?
If I may formulate the question, how strong are the attributes of AI with respect to your measures of ESG? Full stop. In other words, you've got all these great goals of ESG. You got a technology, shouldn't that be evaluatable? Maybe AI can help in that.
So if I understand your question right, absolutely. No, I mean, that's one thing that we use on AI, primarily like ChatGPT, in that it'll help you go out and screen certain things to where, if you get a prospectus, you can go in and say, hey, what changes has like Meta, Facebook, right? When they go and kiss the ring on inauguration day, what other changes internally have they made? And it'll go through and screen a 200-page prospectus, on that. So it's an extremely powerful tool that we use a lot, just because we can be so much more efficient as a company screening all of that stuff.
But I think then the argument can be made, it's a good tool and it's great to use, but are we empowering communities? Are we uplifting our, our weaker individuals?
The cost of the tool.
Exactly. So while the tool is amazing, and I'm not going to sit here and say that we don't use it, because like if you gave me, I was at a conference the other day. They're using it to analyze tax returns and finding you tax breaks that you would never even think that you would have. But now, what about the individual that just took that job away from, or what about some of the individuals that maybe haven't had the opportunity to get a higher education, so they're working these lower jobs, and AI is taking it. So in that respect, AI is going to hurt our communities, 100%. So I think it's just going to be a matter of navigating it. It's scary. We all have kids that are getting ready to go out in the workforce. Like, is there going to be a job for them? For me, honestly, you're right. You could have AI give you probably a pretty legit ESG portfolio, and you don't need to pay them. What can I provide? What can Ryan provide? But one thing that AI can't provide is this. They can't provide, a relationship when you're really stressed out at midnight and just need to call your advisor in the morning. Or I've got multiple emails, but so AI, I think it's a really complicated question. I think it's really complicated. There's so many different levels, and I think I can't say that I think it's great for ESG. I think, yes, we can use it as an amazing tool. It's powerful, but it's going to take away.
It's here and now.
Yes.
We have to admit it's here and now.
Yeah.
And it's not in the future.
Yeah.
It's
Exactly.
now.
Absolutely.
And that's just.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
We have to navigate it.
So it's a challenge for getting through. So I wish you all well.
Yeah, yesterday, I spent a couple hours on it trying to do a proposal for a client, and but yeah, then there's impacts to jobs. There's, it's like I said, it's a huge draw on power for, you're seeing a lot of these coal plants, pressure put them back online because of that. So yeah, how does that all tie together with a powerful tool? But how do you make sure that we all get there? Yeah.
It's scary, and especially again because now how do we help some of these communities, some of these people that need work, that need jobs, that are going to do what AI is just taking over? And so again, maybe as investors, as shareholders, I don't know that you can make a difference on that. I hate to sit up here and say that, but I think we're all just kind of navigating it. But it's a scary situation.
So we're putting it.
Has anyone heard of First Movers or the Julia McCoy YouTube site? She's both a very spiritual person, and she has her own AI firm, which maintains a very good handling of the whole AI topic. And I encourage anyone to consult with her YouTube page or her website.
Okay. What is her name again?
Julie McCoy.
Okay.
That's her YouTube page.
Okay.
And her firm is First Movers.
Awesome, that'd be a good resource for us as well.
And I think before you give us the hook, so like I said, there's a few information here. Reach out to Lindsey. There's that article on the performance piece. And also too, as Dave mentioned, we're the sponsor for Rock Mountain Women's Film Festival. They have their big festival this coming weekend. Yep. So if we do have a bunch of tickets.
So please reach
So if
out.
you guys want any tickets, take Lindsey's card, reach out to her and say I want one for Saturday afternoon.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, you guys. And this, I could sit here and speak forever, but thank you for all the, thank you for the questions. That's what makes it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is Steve. Did you get my thing?
Soldiering on.
I saw your folder. I'm like, that's Virginia.
I really need to make a point. We had this
So
Well,
we need to be.
Yeah.
well, yeah, that would be.
Maybe he'll look this week.
I wanna-
Yeah.
Oh, did you? I did too this morning. I was like, oh, I have to go present this morning.
Okay, thank you.